Well, Razorback fans, I know that baseball's been on the mind for many of you, but football still is kind of there for some. Basketball's still hitting hot and heavy. And who better to talk about all of that than our very good friend, Aaron Torres. He is of the Aaron Torres podcast, as well as of Fox Sports Radio. And AT, as always, man, appreciate you joining us this afternoon. How you doing?
I'm great, John Neighbors. How are you today, my friend?
Well, it's always great when we're hanging out at Tin Roof. I can tell you that. It's always a good time. So on Dixon Street. But I wanted
Not for John Calipari. Got to put earplugs in and go to sleep. But anyway.
Apparently so. Apparently, sorry for partying over here. Like, my goodness, Cal. But yeah, man, speaking of Cal, I think it's so funny how I've done shows every single day. We've done podcasts and everything. Football, when we talk about it, it's fine. Baseball, talk about it, it's fine. But still to this day, basketball, it blows up. Like, it's incredible to see. And I know you talk about a lot of other sports, but basketball is definitely a passion of yours. How do you just feel like right now, where it's at with Arkansas, with Cal and everything, just the state of it all? And has it been what you have expected since Calipari's taken over as a head coach just a little over a month ago?
Yeah, I think it's exceeded my expectations, and I'll tell you why. And maybe this is a little preview. You'll be joining my show either late next week, maybe even the week after Memorial Day. We talked a little bit about this on my show. It's actually exceeded my expectations from this perspective. Is I think Cal's dynamic. I think he's everything that we all knew that he was. But I'll be honest. I'll be honest. Maybe it makes me unpopular in the Natty state, but I had some legitimate questions about two different things. Was one, he's got all these great players that either played for him at Kentucky or that are committed to play for him the following year. And I did wonder, like, certainly the players that were on the roster, like, are they going to follow him? And it's like, well, it was so toxic. Everything was so bad. It didn't work out, blah, 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 blah. Who wants to play for that guy? Well, the Thiero and Big Z still do, and we're waiting on we're on DJ Wagner watch as we speak. Maybe that one becomes a thing by the end of this weekend or whatever. But two, beyond that, there was certainly the high school recruit element of it, which is, a Boogie Fland, a Carter Knox. They have no affiliation to Arkansas, and they have no real ties to Cal. Now, maybe Carter Knox, his brother played for Cal. He was recruited by Kenny Payne at Louisville, so it's a little bit different. But it would have been easy for those guys, especially a Boogie Fland. He's from New York City, reopen the recruitment, go somewhere else. And so for Cal to essentially get, I think that of the 6 guys that were committed to him at Kentucky, I think he probably wanted 4 of them in a perfect world to follow him. He got 3 of them to follow him to Arkansas: Fland, Richmond, and Carter Knox. And then I think the other thing too is the transfer portal, right? All we heard was, oh my God, he's not going to use the portal, and he thinks it's 2010, and all he wants to do is recruit all these high school players. And it's like, no, he's not only gotten players out of the portal, but I think in the case of John L. Martin and Jonas Adu, he's gotten players that he has no ties with. And I think sometimes we in the media, John, we're in it every day, and you hear the negativity and you see the negativity. And so it kind of just makes me laugh. It's like Jonas Adu was in the SEC. I'm sure he heard from fans how terrible Calipari was, and he's the worst coach ever, and he's this and he's that. And he kind of saw it for himself, and he kind of decided, you know what, I want to be a part of this. Now, obviously, in the NIL world, there's a financial element to all of it, but it's not like North Carolina doesn't have money, Baylor doesn't have money, whatever. And so I honestly think I'm going long here, but it's exceeded my expectations because I wasn't sold that just because the name was Calipari, that all those players were going to follow him to Arkansas. 3 recruits, 2 players have, and obviously he's gotten 2 great players that he had no previous ties to before going to Arkansas.
Well, you mentioned DJ Wagner. I think that's what everyone's kind of waiting on. I'm still confident that he ends up going to Arkansas. Who knows when it actually happens, but what do you think about the delay, I guess, in that decision? And if he does go to Arkansas, what type of player and impact can he have being on the roster next season?
Well, it's only a delay to you and I, and obviously, thousands of Arkansas fans. It might not be a delay to DJ Wagner. I mean, I know he took a couple visits, but we don't know what's going on in his personal life. Maybe it's his mom's birthday was this week or something like that. You just never know. I am optimistic as well. I said on my Wednesday night, Thursday morning show, I still think it gets done. there's a couple reasons. I mean, there's the obvious family ties. DJ's dad played for Cal. DJ's grandfather is best friends with Kenny Payne. We know all that. But there's really two other things. Is one, I don't really know where there's a better place for him to go at this point. Most rosters are mostly set at this point. I think, there's a couple places where if a guy stays in the draft, maybe it shakes things up a little bit. I don't know that there's a lot of great other options for him. And even like a USC, people would say, well, USC, Eric Musselman, whatever. USC took a point guard named Desmond Claude, who was really good last year for Xavier. 17 points a game, 3.5 assists, whatever. And I don't know that DJ is going to have the ball in his hands, even if he wants to go to USC. So you add that in with the fact that, and I keep saying this on my show, but DJ, for as high profile as he's been throughout his high school career, he's never been the biggest social media guy. Even when he was in high school, it was hard to get tangible, concrete data or information on his recruitment. I know Arkansas fans probably didn't follow it closely, but there was like a 6-month kind of blackout on his recruitment where in the spring, going into his senior year, you heard, Louisville's trending. And I have buddies that cover Louisville, and they were like, we never really got anything tangible other than that Kenny Payne hired his grandfather. And so I know I'm kind of going off script here, but I just bring it up to say there was never any tangible. He did an interview and Louisville was in the lead. And then he did an interview 6 months later and Kentucky was in the lead. He basically just didn't do interviews for like 6-7 months. And you had to kind of speculate, okay, Louisville's in the lead. Now Kentucky's in the lead. And then he ended up just committing during the early signing period as a senior in high school. And so I keep telling, my audience that, which I know overlaps quite a bit with your audience, is he's never been a Joe Tipton. Here's my top 10. Now here's my top 5. Now here's my top 3. I'm going to announce on this day. It wouldn't surprise me if there was just a statement or maybe even a release from the school or a tweet from a Jeff Goodman or John Rothstein a half an hour before an email from Mike Kaywood. And I don't think this is going to be some big, bold, commitment where he has to let all of social media know that he's going to Arkansas. And I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. So that's just kind of how he's always operated.
Well, also too, there's something that Razorback fans have been very interested in is like Cal kind of says like, I'm just going to have 8 players, it's all I'm going for, which it is interesting because you can have 13 scholarships. I mean, you can have more, but then when I look at it, it's like, well, most teams usually only play 8 players for the most part. So, but what'd you make of those comments? And what do you think maybe the direction Cal goes to filling up to the rest of the roster after DJ Wagner? Does he go for just some bodies? Does he still try to get some big time players? Just how do you think the process works in that as far as filling out the roster?
So, again, kind of being a national guy and having a finger on the pulse of things, just outside of Arkansas, I think he kind of learned a lesson from this year. And again, there's so much negativity whenever you talk about how things ended at Kentucky, but they were really good early in the year. Beat North Carolina, who was a number 1 seed, beat Florida at Florida the first week of SEC play. And what ended up happening last year was they had 2 really bad injuries to 2 of their big guys in the summer. They went and added 2 more players, Big Z and a kid named Trey Mitchell, who played as a senior last year at Kentucky. And then the 2 guys that got hurt during the summer came back. And Cal basically had like 11 guys that were good enough to play on any given night. And that's never how he's operated. And so, I think, I'm trying to do some math in my head. I mean, it would have been 9 if those 2 injuries don't happen. I don't know if he goes after a Big Z. I don't know if he goes after a Trey Mitchell, whatever. But I think he's kind of learning from the mistake of last year, which is, bluntly, I had too many good players, and it was hard to set a rotation. Now, they had some injuries too and all that, but it was hard to set a rotation. It was hard to get guys comfortable playing with each other. And so I am not bothered by it. Now, to your point, you're going to have to fill out the back half of the roster with something. And I guess what I hope is that if you get DJ Wagner, and I didn't even answer your question on how good I think they'll be. I think they'll be really good because I'm higher on DJ than most. But I hope if you get a DJ Wagner, if you do get DJ Wagner, and you have a really good core of 8, you don't then try to get somebody, if somebody kind of decides at the last minute to pull out of the NBA draft, it's kind of a star caliber player. Because I think the 8 that you have is really good. And I hope that you do use those last couple scholarships if you're going to use them, and you should use them to get to 10 or 11 and find players that want to play in the SEC, want to play on a huge stage like Arkansas, want to play for a Hall of Fame coach, because those players are there. I'll give credit to somebody that Arkansas fans may or may not like, may have no opinion on. But Mark Pope the other day, the Kentucky coach, they took a commitment from a kid from Fairleigh Dickinson, whose final two before he committed to Kentucky were Siena and I think Pepperdine. And of course, everybody that's not a Kentucky fan is making fun of him. But I think if you're taking that guy saying you're our 11th guy, you're only going to play 7-8 minutes, but you're going to have a chance to play on the biggest stage in college basketball. Do you want this opportunity? And that kid says, yes. I think that's how you should be filling out the back half of that roster. By the way, I go back to a few off seasons ago, my alma mater, the University of Connecticut, coming off back-to-back national championships. But a key player on the first championship team was a kid named Joey Calcaterra. He committed in like July, and he was basically a practice body that just told Dan Hurley, like, I want the opportunity to play at UConn, and I just want to know that if I earn my keep on the court, that you'll give me an opportunity. Well, the kid comes in, it's cliche. I don't want to make him sound like Rudy because he's better than that, but just kind of busted his butt, got some minutes early, and became a crucial part of that team, knowing that he's probably the 9th guy, knowing coming in that at best I'm going to play 8, 9, 10 minutes. The point I'm trying to make, even though the portal's closed, even though the best players are mostly gone, there are still guys out there that would take that opportunity to play for Calipari, that would take that opportunity to be part of a great program in the SEC. And I hope those are the guys that he targets with scholarships 9, 10, 11, 12, because I think if you get DJ, I really like that top 8.
Well, I'll ask you this too, AT. I know what the expectation Razorback fans have for Calipari here at Arkansas, but you're a national guy. So what is your expectation? What do you think Cal can do at Arkansas? Do you still think he can coach? Do you still think that he can be better than in the postseason, at least, than what we saw at Kentucky the past few seasons? What do you think is realistic for John Calipari at Arkansas over the next 4 or 5 years?
So I am a believer, so a lot of things can be true, because every time that I say anything positive about Cal, it's like, well, you're the guy that tweeted this after the Oakland game. And it's like, yeah, I do think that things kind of ran their course with Calipari at Kentucky. That happens. That's life. Not everybody can be Nick Saban, that is still at the apex of his game when he decides to step away, and the apex, at that specific place. And so I just bring it up because for Cal, I do think it had come full circle. And I think a lot of it is on him, but some of it is the fan base wore him out. And I mean, listen, he was the guy that said when he took the Kentucky job, this is a job that you take for 5, 6, 7 years. It's not a job that you take for 20 years and you retire at. It's just not. And so the fact that he wanted to keep coaching, I'm excited, because I do think while it's true that it had run its course at Kentucky, I don't think he's out of juice. And I think all you got to do is look at the last couple weeks. Again, even if you want to say that we should have assumed that those recruits were going to follow him, even a player or two, I can tell you when Adu Thiero hit the portal, all the reports out of Kentucky were, and this, Adu hit the portal when Cal was still at Kentucky. Oh, he's not coming back. He's over Cal. He's over this. He's over that. Cal convinced him to come to Fayetteville. I think the John L. Davis, the Nelly Davis, and Jonas Adu, those speak to a guy that is still hungry. And so I think now that he's got a fresh start, now that he has a fan base that believes in him, which increasingly was less and less, if not non-existent by the end of his time at Kentucky, I think that is going to give him like a weird confidence. Like, you shouldn't be impacted by what the fans feel, but when you walk in the arena, the tension when you lose, the tension of a 2-game losing streak, a 3-game losing streak, where, if Arkansas loses to Tennessee and Bama in back-to-back games next year, yeah, fans are going to be disappointed, but I think for the most part, people won't be freaking out like it's DEFCON 5, which is what it was in Lexington. So I think the fresh start was good for everybody. Maybe it'll make me unpopular again. I think Mark Pope is going to be good at Kentucky, but I also think John Calipari is going to be really good at Arkansas. And I think he's got a little bit of his groove back here these last couple of weeks, and the fresh start, I think, was good for everybody.
All right, last one before I let you get out of here, AT. I know that people may not care about preseason rankings and all that. It is what it is.
Let's do it.
But I know you kind of put together that as far as just where things are at with preseason rankings. Yeah. Where do you have Arkansas at where it current stands? And also, in the SEC, when SEC basketball media days comes around,
Mm.
where do you predict that they will be predicted in their order of finish among all the conference teams?
Yeah. So me personally, I have them right now, even without DJ Wagner, at number 2 in the SEC. I don't think there's really anything Cal could do that would make me move them past Bama. Bama could potentially return most of the key pieces from a Final Four team. I think once you get past Bama, you can make an argument for Arkansas. You can make maybe an argument for Tennessee. Auburn returned some pieces. Um, again, I'm higher on what Mark Pope has done than many others are. So I think it's going to be Alabama. And then I think probably those 4 you can kind of put in any order. I know some people are higher on Florida than others. I like Florida. I like what Todd Golden has done. So I think this team has a chance to be really good. And like I said, with DJ, now, again, assuming everybody stays healthy, which is obviously a crapshoot, I think when I look at that roster, it's not only that you have really talented players, the pieces all fit pretty well together. And so I think that if you can keep that core relatively healthy, if guys make natural progressions like they should, and this is going to be kind of that combination of high upside talent with veteran talent, I think Arkansas has a chance to be really good. I have them right now in the top 15. I think I have them 13, 12, 13, something like that. It's interesting. I don't look at everybody else's top 25s, but I know Rothstein has them about the same spot. So I don't base my opinion on what other people think, but I think it's pretty clear that people are impressed with the talent that the team has accumulated together. Now I do think you probably do need players 9, 10. I know Cal joked about just giving walk-on scholarships or graduate student scholarships or whatever. I think you need another big guy, probably just in case. Some more shooting would be great. Again, I hope that you're not just going for super high-profile guys if they pull out of the draft. I think at that point, there's got to be some 6'8", 6'9" guy that's just happy to bang bodies and play 8-10 minutes in the SEC as a backup to Jonas Adu and Adu and all those guys. I assume there's some 39% 3-point shooter from some school that we couldn't find on a map that would be love to play at Arkansas. I don't know if that's how Cal's going to pursue things, but again, to answer your question, it's hard to put anybody other than Bama at number 1, but I'd put Arkansas that next tier, which really could be 3, 4, 5 teams, depending on how you feel about certain teams and certain guys.
It is Aaron Torres of the Aaron Torres podcast. And correct me if I'm wrong, aren't you doing an AMA on the Natty State Sports Discord tonight? Is that what's happening?
Whoever's coordinating it with me, who's a mystery user, he hasn't really confirmed with me, but I think I am. So yeah, check me out if I get a DM about that. If I get a link, I'll click it, as long as it, hopefully that sounded like bad, but hopefully it doesn't give my computer any viruses. But if I get a credible link from a credible person, then yes, I will do an AMA. Ask me just about anything. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, assuming that it's still on. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping so, because he is that mysterious person is excited about it. So
okay,
it should be remaining on. But
they made it sound like a blind date or something. Like, Jill's really excited to meet you.
She's got a great personality.
Yeah,
doesn't mean she's always the one that's the best looker. So it kind of shows. Okay. It's kind of like Natty State Sports, man. We're not the best looking, but we got great personality. So
there you go. You sure do.
Yeah,
I can't speak to the looks. That's not really my area of expertise, but you're all full of personality, and that's all you can ask for. So yeah, apparently I'm doing a Discord tonight. So that's awesome.
I guess we'll find out. But hey, Aaron Torres of the Aaron Torres podcast. You can follow him on Twitter, X at Aaron_Torres. As always, buddy, appreciate you joining us. Great stuff, and enjoy your summertime, man. We'll be catching up with you soon.
Thank you. By the way, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be asked every single question that you just asked me in that AMA tonight, but tune in anyway, because I'll probably be answering most of the same questions. But I'm looking forward to it, though.